Today's Mishnah is dedicated by Rafi and Jacob Licht in memory of their beloved mother, Judy Licht, a wonderful lady, Yehudit Bat Reuven. To sponsor our Day of Learning, go to mishnah.co/support or send me an email.
Berachot Perek Chet Mishnah Hey. We'll continue our learning in memory of my father, Harav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Says the Mishnah. The Mishnah is talking about the idea, the din of Havdalah. Okay? So just to understand what Havdalah is, the Rambam writes in Hilchot Shabbat Perek Kaftet, the Rambam says the following. And this is the things that we all sort of intuitively know, but we don't really necessarily know that this is the reason for the din, the reason for the law. Says the Rambam, Mitzvat aseh min Torah, the Kadesh Yom HaShabbat bidvarim. That God commanded us, a din of Mitzvat aseh, from the Torah, a positive commandment, the Kadesh Yom HaShabbat bidvarim, to sanctify the day of Shabbat with words, Shene'emar, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Remember the day of Shabbat to sanctify it. Kulomar, meaning, Zochreu zichirat shabach, shabach bekidush. Remember it, a memory of praise and sanctification. V'tzarich lezochreu b'knisato u'b'yetziato. And you remember it when it enters and when it leaves. So, i.e., you're doing this sort of kiddush, it's a double kiddush in the beginning and then at the end. B'knisato b'kiddush, hayom, in the beginning you're doing kiddush, that we call kiddush, it's called kiddush hayom, sanctification of the day. U'b'yetziato b'havdalah. So it's very fascinating. You don't think about Havdalah as being an extension of Kiddush, but the Rambam says Havdalah is the opposite, is the bookend of Kiddush. You sanctify something by making it special at the beginning. You say that we're starting something important. And at the end you say, okay, that important thing was over. And those, the Rambam says, both of those elements, both of Kiddush and Havdalah, b'knisato or b'yitziato, those are part of the mitzvah aseh. So the Mishnah is going to allude to talk about the order of Kiddush, of Havdalah, But the Mishnah is talking about a very interesting specific case. What happens if you have to do Havdalah? You only have one cup of wine, and you're finishing Seudah Shlishit. So you finish Seudah Shlishit, and then you're going to make the bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen. You're going to do Birkat HaMazon, say the Borei Pri Hagafen somewhere, okay? Right after you finish benching. Remember, because you're benching on the kos, like we do in Seudah Shlishit. And then you're going to make Havdalah right away. So it's interesting, nowadays we would never do this because we would bench, we always bench. If you have Seudah Shlishit, you have one kos, you bench, you leave the cup, and then you come back. You say Ma'ariv, and then you come back and you do Havdalah on that kos. But in the times of the Mishnah, it was a matter of debate. So says the Mishnah. Oops, sorry about that. Says the Mishnah, I want to separate into two separate topics. Beit Shammai Omrim. Beit Shammai says, Ner, Umazon, ubisamim, v'havdalah. First you would have the ner, you would have the candle, then you would recite Birkat HaMazon, Rabotai Varech, and after Birkat HaMazon, the assumption is that you would say Yayin, you would do Borei Pri Hagafen, and then Bisamim, and then Havdalah. Beit Hillel says, no, ner, ubisamim, first you do ner and bisamim, and then Mazon v'havdalah. Very interesting what the distinction between the two. The Gemara says what's clear that both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree that Ner is first, Havdalah is last, according to this opinion. But in the middle, do you do Birkat HaMazon first, or do you do Bisamim first? Beit Shammai, according to this opinion, says you do Birkat HaMazon first, and then you do Bisamim. And Beit Hillel says no, for whatever reason, you combine Ner u Bisamim. You combine those two things. Why do we do Ner? We know Ner, the Chazal said, because on Motzei Shabbat, there's a midrash that says that Adam HaRishon and Adam and Chava were kicked out of Gan Eden on a Friday, late Friday afternoon, and then after Shabbat was over, the midrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them the inspiration of rubbing two rocks together in order to have fire, and that happened on Motzei Shabbat. So therefore, we light a fire on Motzei Shabbat. Others say because we couldn't light beforehand, so we light afterwards. Bisamim also is after the sadness of the day or the loss of the neshama yetera, so we smell the sweet spices in order to give us a little bit of a spiritual lift. So for whatever reason, it seems Beit Hillel, we wanted to combine Ner with Bisamim, whereas Beit Shammai said no. I guess the Beit Shammai felt that Ner is the end of the day, but Bisamim and Havdalah go together. It's difficult to really know what the real reason was. So the Gemara says something interesting. If you'll notice, none of these are the order that we do it. We'll see what we do in a second. So the Gemara notices this as well. The Gemara says no. The Mishnah is the position of Rabbi Meir. Okay, Rabbi Meir said that Beit Shammai said, Ner, Mazon, Bisamim, Havdalah. Ner is a Mazon, and I added Yain for you, so you know. And Beit Hillel said, Ner, Bisamim, Mazon, Yain, Havdalah. But Rabbi Yehuda says, it's a totally different machloket. Rabbi Yehuda says, the argument is, Beit Shammai says, Mazon, they agreed, Mazon and Havdalah are first and last, not Ner and Havdalah. First you bench, Everyone agrees. You finish Suda Shlishi. And then you obviously make Yayin because the benching, the Beit Gafen is on the benching because you did the Havdalah, the Birkat Hamazon on the coast. Okay, and Beit Hillel also agrees, but the question is, what comes first, Ner or Bisamim and Ner? So now you might notice you're starting to see something much more recognizable. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mazon, Yayin, Bisamim, Ner, Havdalah. So let's look for our case. Even if you didn't bench, so you benched Shalashudis, you went to Daven Mariv, Yayin, Bisamim, Ner, Havdalah. And that's how we do it. We would say, Hinei El Yeshuati, those are psukim that are minhag. Then you make the Borei Priya Gafen, Borei Mi Bisamim, Borei Mi'arei Ha'esh, we'll talk about the bracha in a second, and then Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'chol, the bracha. And it's like, Yeshei Tevot, Yavne, Yayin, Bisamim, Ner, Havdalah. Okay, what about the bracha itself? And that's actually the Rambam. Let's go back to the Rambam for a second. The Rambam Paskins at the very end, okay, this is exactly how he Paskins, Seder Havdalah. This is Perek Chavtet B'Hilchot Shabbat. The Rambam says, Seder Havdalah Motzei Shabbat, V'erech ala Yayin, V'achar kach Bisamim, V'achar kach Ner. Okay, and then how he does the ner, and then he goes into it and say Havdalah. Yayin, Bisamim, ner, and then V'achar kach Mavdil, Havdalah. And that's how we paskin today. The Mishnah continues, another interesting machloket between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai omrim shebara me'or ha'esh, uBeit Hillel omrim borei me'orei ha'esh. If you look, you can look in the Gemara, there's a long discussion about the difference between shebara, that God did create, and borei. And what the difference between me'or and me'orei. Shebara is obviously referring to the past. Borei is in the present, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always creating. And me'or is a single fire, and me'orei is the flicker, is the many fire. We take two candles, but that's a different din. It's not connected to this. It's connected to the idea that it has to be an avuka. Avuka is a torch of some kind, a halachic torch. But nonetheless, we paskin obviously like Beit Hillel, and we say that the bracha a person says is borei me'orei ha'esh. If you have any comments or questions, contact me, rspolter@gmail.com. Spread the word about these Mishnayot. Hope everyone is enjoying learning them. As always, have a great day.